for not giving a shit about me all those years, and for lying to me and betraying me and humiliating me. I'm making an example out of you for all the assholes out there who think they can keep on fucking us over and over. Goodbye, my love.
It was in this moment back in 2006 that I thought to myself, bloody hell Reggie, games have just encroached on what movies have been doing for years. That is, tell an emotional story. Because you see, until then, games told great stories, but graphics and animations, in particular of the facial kind, that's what she said, were holding back the immersion. So my question is, in 2022, have games actually matched, or dare I say, even surpassed movies in how they go about and tell those stories? We'll grab some popcorn and a beer and let's have a little chat, shall we? Welcome back to Cockney Gamer, and roaming around the streets of London as always is Reggie. Now, the topic of this video was inspired by an altogether different YouTuber called The Critical Drinker. He reviews movies and I implore you to check him out as he talks no nonsense bullshit. In one of his videos he discusses the overuse of CGI and how ultimately the movie is less immersive and hollow because of it. I'll link his channel below for you little people. And I thought to myself, Reggie lad, you've played games for 30 plus years now. Wouldn't you say gaming has actually gone in the opposite direction during that time? Too bloody right it has, people, and I'll explain to the Cockney Gamer gang why that is. For me, one of the best and earliest examples of a game that had a rich and vast story was in the form of Knights of the Old Republic. This was in the middle of the shitty Attack of the Clones era, where George Lucas lost the bloody plot. And so when Knights of the Old Republic was released way back in 2003, it blew me away in how it created a story arc, and one that I was actually invested in, more so than its movie cousins. Sure, there were some magical games before this period, but they were magical because they had great gameplay elements. Maybe a great teabagging simulator like Halo, maybe a great platformer like Mario 64, but story, God no, they had about as much ability to tell a great story as Amber Heard telling us her dog stepped on a little bumblebee. But BioWare came along with an absolute corker here, and it proved early on that great scripts and voice acting were as integral to the game as anything else which had come before. And this, my friends, this is why I'm so wet for the remake, because it's going to be a Goliath of a game if all they do is just make it a little bit fancier. I implore you all, if you haven't played Knights of the Old Republic, then don't ruin it for yourself and find out what happens yourself. Instead, just enjoy that experience and don't be googling bloody YouTube videos on the ending, god damn it. So 3 years later in 2006, and we get to this tech demo for Heavy Rain. Now, Quantic Dreams are renowned for telling a brilliant story, but it was this tech demo that for me ushered in an additional new weapon for the games industry, and that was the form of facial animations. As discussed in my opening gambit, this was the era that really started to encroach on the movie industry in its push towards more realism than just standard gameplay. Now I'm going to play a little 2-minute clip of this so you boys and girls can see what I mean, but feel free to skip it via the little timestamps below if you can't be asked to watch it. Now the video itself picks up where the actress is suspecting you of having an affair. Now not me ladies, I'm a good little boy, as I feared my trouble and strife would cut my nutsack off if she found out I was cheating. Anyway, enjoy the little clip here.
But just to ease my mind, one night I follow you as you leave the office. I follow you to the CD hotel where you meet the girl. And then my whole world falls apart. I come home and I cry for hours in my kitchen. I get the gun from the drawer in the bedroom and I tell myself that if this is all that life has to offer me, then I can do without. But then I changed my mind. After all, I'm not the one who's cheating. So, quietly, I wait for you to come home, sitting in my average little kitchen. Obviously, when you get home, you don't suspect a thing, so I press the fucking gun against your forehead and I take a few seconds to watch the fear grow in your eyes. You tell yourself, she won't do it, she doesn't have the guts, she's just trying to teach me a lesson. But you are so wrong, honey. I sentence you to death for turning my life into a soap opera cliche, for stepping on my dreams, for not giving a shit about me all those years, and for lying to me and betraying me and humiliating me. I'm making an example out of you for all the assholes out there who think they can keep on fucking us over and over. Goodbye, my love.
Now I look back at this, and even now I still find this an immersive way to present both character background and the story it tells. A fantastic musical score and a great piece of writing exists here, yes, but here we see how motion capture and facial animations lifted the lid on how developers get the gamer, that is you people, actually invested in their games. The quality of acting was now above porn level, and you only need to compare this clip to the latest and greatest from Quantic Dreams in the form of Detroit Become Human, and you can see that how the tech has grown significantly to really create an immersive medium. Don't get me wrong, boys and girls, I'm not saying that movies are shit and don't have great stories, because they do. But I am saying they are happening less and less these days, where the rush to smash us with more CGI and more explosions, as expertly analysed by the critical drinker, is the main goal for studios. For me, it means my interest in movies has dwindled, and why I also think that many services, streaming services that is, people, have capitalised. My time spent with gaming is more than just a superficial level these days. There is more to it than shoot this, click that, teabag that little on the floor. Instead, the storytelling in gaming has progressed in ways that those boomers who don't play games but do enjoy a good movie are really missing out. Another element of impressive storytelling that games now possess is the ability to build out characters. With bigger budgets, better musical scores, throw in a proper scriptwriter, and you have the ability to create backstories, character overlaps, and ultimately create the feelings of a jacked up emo teenager. Feelings of treachery, distrust, love, affection or hate, they all now come into play. And now think about this, boys and girls, and think very hard here, because these are emotions that until recently were not themes or feelings we had ever experienced in games before. Instead, we would experience things like excitement based on having a kill streak, or tension from a cheap jump scare from a horror game, or maybe satisfaction at getting the perfect score. Understanding these deep connections that these on-screen little pixels have with each other, it's another level that raises gaming beyond movies in many respects, given that movies are passive in nature. The best of the best for me is Naughty Dog. I truly don't think there is a better developer out there at the moment that builds character backstory, and The Last of Us is arguably the granddaddy of them all. Sticking with The Last of Us, let's talk about the opening scene, shall we, and why it works so bloody well. You have the setting of a single dad looking after his daughter, a moment of the everydayness that we all relate to, minus the Tommy Tank of course, and of a father who works his bloody arse off to provide for his family, whilst no doubt getting taxed as shit. And as you control his daughter in those opening scenes, it's the sheer horror and fear of what is happening around you as you witness the events from a child's eyes. And of course, here comes the scene towards the end of this little intro that really lays down the foundation for the character development between Ellie and Joel, and why it is so fractured. And it all stems from these events that you lay witness to and took part in. Again, I'm not here to spoil the story, so don't you worry, boys and girls, but towards the end of the game, there are so many debates about right versus wrong that only you as the gamer can decide what it means, and it leaves you feeling as conflicted as the Middle East. It's these ever-changing story arcs embedded in the character development, which is why modern games is up there with the very best. And perhaps the best supporting argument I have is the fact that HBO are actually now creating a series on The Last of Us, the rich bastards. Next comes the Mass Effect trilogy, and why it too deserves to be a showpiece of how games tell a better story than many movies these days. Now, this is a work of art, And for all its faults on its ending, and yes, I know the ending's not perfect, you cannot deny that as a trilogy, it's simply outstanding. I've already mentioned Knights of the Old Republic here, and Mass Effect is for me the best of what BioWare has ever created. Now, games possess the inherent ability to be immersive, and in particular Mass Effect achieves this by the choices you are given. Movies, in contrast, are passive, but they do of course bring with it spectacle. Compare the Lord of the Rings trilogy as an upstanding piece of content, and given the choice between watching that on the big screen or playing the Mass Effect trilogy, I would still go for Lord of the Rings. I'm not a fucking cretin, people, but it is a close choice, and that alone stands testament to how far gaming has actually come. Also, how rare does a trilogy like Lord of the Rings reach our screens? It actually feels a bit like a generational moment these days, whereas games are providing this kind of content more and more regularly. Mass Effect ensures that gamer has choice on outcome of story, of how whole planets are decided by your decisions, or whether or not people live or die, just like how me and Johnny treat Frank the Manx associates when we meet them down the local boozer. And once the third game hits and you're already 60 hours invested into the story arc, which by the way you've helped create, you become utterly engrossed, and so when the sight of the baddies appear on Earth, it leaves you feeling nothing but anxiety mixed with vengeance. These choices you make matter to you personally, and the issue with films of course is that the choices they make are always set by the director, even if you as an audience don't like them. It's a very powerful distinction, people, so take the point on board so that you can sleep happy tonight. The final puzzle piece for me, whereby games have actually surpassed movies in some areas, is in the sound arena, both from the sound effects and musical score to the technical aspects, such as the introduction of Dolby Atmos. Play Call of Duty for an example. Play that on a bloody good Atmos setup, and your ears will melt with delight. And whilst that does encourage immersion, does it help with a great story? Of course not, boys and girls, because we all know that these World War II games couldn't pull a good story from their arse if it was laid on a plate for them. However, technical developments do give the tools for developers to deliver us high quality audio. Now, of all the games I've mentioned today, they all deliver of course in both musical score and sound effects, but my final showpiece for this little video is Red Dead Redemption. The sound effects are first class, and simply trotting around on your horse, shitting on the floor and listening to what Mother Nature has to offer is one of the best aspects of the game. But throw in a fantastic score and you feel like you're in the final days of the Wild West. And Rockstar, they are masters at building up the ante in those incredible set pieces. And let's not forget, people, about the bloody good voice acting too, which is delivered with such authority and authenticity that few actors on screen could do any better. And so you actually care here, you actually care about the world you live in, about the main character Arthur, and indeed about how the world has changed through a more chaotic pace. As for musical scores, let's not forget to mention Halo in all this, arguably the most recognised piece of gaming music, and one that any man below the age of 50 could probably recognise. Oh, and those Paramount rich bastards, they too have created a series from it, again showcasing the power of the gaming medium to tell a story. So, am I saying movies are worse than gaming? Of course not, you imbeciles. In fact, for all these examples I've provided, there is plenty of dog shit out there, and they cannot tell stories to save their lives. As seen in my little Cyberspunk review, the gaming industry still struggles with mature themes such as sex, but there is a lot of shit out there in movies too, and the dilution of quality stories, they actually seem to be more prevalent than ever. It could just be rose-tinted glasses, of course, but when you watch movies from previous decades, it feels like storytelling came first before anything else. I look at the greats such as Schindler's List, Shawshank Redemption, Forrest Gump, you name it. There was a time when movies delivered every single moment and you actually cared about what was happening on screen. The fact Hollywood has an obsession with remakes these days is simply because it lacks new ideas and it refuses to take risks. Now, I know there's remakes in gaming, I get that, but I think that is really as much to do with the technological advances to make it even more immersive, as shown by the Knights of the Old Republic remake. Gaming has come such a long way in those 30 years when Reggie was just a little lad, and it's no wonder that he's bigger than the film industry, and no wonder Hollywood scrambles to pick up the gaming rights. I wouldn't say one is better than the other anymore, but instead I would say gaming is no worse either. And for me, that in itself perhaps answers the question at hand. Until next time, kids, Reggie out.